Okay. Good night. Welcome to another episode of. Well, she counted down, so I figured we were over the claps. Do you want me to clap? I'll clap. No, your clap doesn't
You can
count.
tell she hasn't watched an episode recently because she has no clue what we're talking about.
Clapping in the corner. Good night. Welcome to another episode of Pursuit. We are continuing our study on the book of Philippians. Today we are starting with chapter 3, verses 1 to 11. That's where we're taking the bulk of what we're talking about today. And I guess to start off our conversation, I'm gonna throw out a question. What did you want to be when you grew up?
You can go first, Asha.
Why, do you need time to think?
Yeah.
That was probably a while ago for you.
Dang.
Welcome back. Asha, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
I feel like it changed every year. Like the first time somebody asked me, I definitely wanted to be a princess of some sort. Then I think I wanted to be a teacher for a really long time. And then now no to teaching.
Oh, I think I meant no to being anything. I don't want to be.
I'm not gonna lie, you saying princess makes so much sense now. When in the other episode you were like, you didn't want to be like Spider-Man, but you wanted to be like the girlfriend, right? Like, and now that makes so much sense now.
When I went home, I was like, Jasmine, that's who I want to be.
Oh, that was a good one. She had a tiger. What, a lion. Tiger. Sometimes what did you want to be?
Let's see. What did I want to be? I definitely want to be a superhero.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
I think part of me still wants to be a superhero. Like if they were giving out like the Captain America potion thing, I'd 100% volunteer to take it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely wanted to be like a race car driver. Probably say like not like a regular pilot, like a fighter jet, like something like super fast.
Oh, okay.
Right. Like if it was just like a I mean, I guess technically, like a passenger plane does fly relatively fast.
Yeah, but it's not as intense.
Yeah,
there's no rush.
Yeah.
I feel like if there was a rush, that means you're doing it wrong.
Definitely.
So.
But what else? I feel like most things I wanted to be were just like imaginary stuff I had seen on TV. Like more,
I feel like that's how it is for most kids.
Yeah, like it's probably like some type of superhero thing. I don't think there was anything. I guess maybe like the pilot and the race car driver that really grounded in reality. Anything else, it was like some type of superhero or like a knight. Even though they have guns now, but like I just be like showing up on like a horse in like armor. Like I'm gonna stop.
I mean, you do have a sword though.
Yeah, I do. But like I'll just show up to like a bank robbery, like stop
with a horse.
Like they're in their getaway car, and I'm just like going down Liberty Avenue on my horse.
Can I watch your horse for you?
See, she is a horse girl.
Love horses.
When I said that the other time, we were talking about your favorite animal. You're like, no, I like chickens.
That was because it was 2 truths and a lie.
But I thought you actually ended up liking chickens.
Oh.
I
like to eat it.
Oh.
I feel like that's exactly what she did last time and messed up the whole game.
That's probably maybe. Yeah. But you also didn't give a lie. You did 3 truths.
No, I'm pretty sure I've never messed up 2 truths and a lie. I'm pretty sure.
Have you been hit by a bus?
Yes.
You had a gray car.
Yes.
I don't remember what the third one was.
Because the third one was a lie. So why would you remember a lie?
You said something about karate.
Oh yeah, you were talking about your.
We played 2 rounds, so you're definitely conflating.
No, we played. That was the one.
No, it wasn't.
Run it back.
No,
run it back.
You know what it is with the bus? I didn't get hit. I got grazed.
Oh.
So maybe that was a lie then.
Kind of the same thing.
There was.
You want someone to hit you and then someone graze you and see if it's the same thing?
In theory, there's contact in both.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't say I got contacted by a bus.
Yeah, but I'm saying like hit. This is a hit. But also, if I went to like whack you really hard, that'd still be a hit.
Yeah, but Okay, that doesn't disprove.
But that's what I'm saying. Like a graze.
Yeah, this is a graze.
Yeah, but I could go like this and graze you and still count it as a hit.
Then you're just wrong. No, just because you made a hitting motion. Okay, a hitting motion does not count as a hit.
So why is it a hitting motion?
Because and the intention was to hit, but then my intention is to hit, but I grazed you. It's not a hit, it's a graze.
I would still count the contact as a hit.
Well, that's just petty, all right? I don't know what else to tell you.
Maybe I am.
Clearly.
I very much am.
This really took a turn. That, like...
So moving on from your imaginary jobs that you wanted, from since I can remember, I think I've always wanted to be a pediatrician or like an elementary teacher. And I think both jobs are very fitting for me. Like no one would be surprised that those are my two dream jobs, I feel.
No, we're not surprised because I feel like, again, that's what I feel like you've talked about.
Yeah.
In that sense, so like, yeah, we're not surprised. Yeah. No, like you said it like oh, like it's some weird thing. No, like
no,
you've
it's
been
not
talking
a weird
about
thing.
it all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, no, but I feel like with my personality and the things that interest me, I feel like that's not a surprising career choice as a child. So Philippians Chapter 3 verses roughly 1 to 11. I think from when I was reading it and like what I got from it is basically Paul's telling the people to like rejoice in all ways, rejoice. And he was talking about. Sorry, I have to pull my notes back up. Okay, so kind of what I got, he was saying that there's more to life than just having a meaning and purpose, but you should also be rejoicing in everything that you do. So like even though you are searching, a lot of people are searching for their meaning and for their purpose, you should rejoice in all steps of that search. Right? And then it also struck me that like rejoicing or like worshiping is more of an action word versus like a feeling word. So being like saying, oh, let's rejoice in the Lord, it's more than just a feeling of being like glad and joyful, but it's like in everything I'm doing, I'm gonna rejoice in the Lord. Does that make?
I think that's where a lot of believers get tripped up with their relationship with God, because a lot of it is feeling based, and they think, well, I don't feel good, so it's like not feeling good is like an indication of your spiritual relationship, right? Like I think we were talking about this in like a separate meeting. I don't know if it was that last meeting we had, but it was like when you're like sad and someone's like, oh, just like pray about it, right? As though being sad means God, like there's a strain on your relationship with God.
Like it's a punishment or like you're doing something wrong,
right? You know, and to some degree I kind of understand why people think that, because if you're in a relationship with like, you know, like a significant other, and one person is relatively sad, a lot of people would be like, hey, what's going on with your girlfriend? Hey, what's going on with your boyfriend? Like, you know, like I understand that, but I think a lot of people, when it comes to God, they don't understand. Just because I'm sad doesn't mean that like God is punishing me or something. Like there's so many reasons why someone can be in a negative, just a negative mood. And it's like, you know, I think we either blame it on God or we blame it on I haven't done enough in the relationship with God to be positive, because they see things where it says rejoice in the Lord, right? And verse 1 there, right? And they think, oh, well, if you just rejoice in the Lord, then you're not sad. But like you said, if it's an action, right? It's yes, I would hope that if you're rejoicing in the Lord, it may bring some type of joy in whatever's happening. And maybe joy is not the right word, because like, you know, you rejoice in the Lord and you just lost someone. I don't think you necessarily be joyful, right? Or maybe you would, but
I think it's like a different kind. Like it's not like I'm gonna be happy all the time, but
I think it's a I don't know what the word is, like, it alleviates what's happening in the moment, if I can put it that way, right? And I think for a lot of believers, that's where they mess up, because like, oh, I just got my heart broken and now, well, God's not here. Like, no, that's not the case at all.
Yeah, and I know that we've talked about this a lot, like on the podcast, about like the common misconceptions of Christianity, and that's like a big one of them is like, 100%. Oh, just because like you're a Christian and you like know God or whatever, that means you're not gonna go through any like heartache in your life, and you're not gonna have to like make certain sacrifices in life. You're still gonna have to do all those things, but you know, you do have someone to go to in that moment.
Yeah, and in this like portion, this section of the chapter too, Paul kind of tries to remind them that we aren't the source of our salvation. Like everything that you are, you didn't get it from yourself. Like he even lists his Paul kind of listed his own, like his accreditation, like his title, his birthplace, like his credibility. He listed that as reliance on himself, but then he also came back and said that like all of these things that I have accomplished, it's nothing compared to me actually knowing and living in the goodness of God. And like he was saying that his human gains are only really useful when they are found in Jesus. And his I think he was kind of I don't know if it's not a word for word what am I saying? It's not a word for word.
Did you just ask me what you're saying? You're paraphrasing? Is that what you're trying to say?
To paraphrase the verse, he was kind of saying like his lost life is now found in Jesus and in the hope of the resurrection. So another question I guess to throw out to you guys, what do we use to mark like a blessed life? Like how would you, because a lot of times we look for these physical or these tangible markers to say like, oh, that person is living like a blessed, like a holy, like a gifted life. What are some of the things that a lot of people, I guess, look for to say that?
I feel like it all depends on the person. Like it depends on what that person wants to accomplish in their life, what they find is important. Like some people might think like a blessed life is like, you know, having this much money or like having this house or this car, and that's what they would recognize as like having a goal or having achieved something in life.
Well, I think a big thing is when we talk about blessing, we always talk about it in the sense of a physical thing, right? And normally a blessing, it's normally wealth, right, or it's health. It's like one of those two things. Really, like those are the two main things when Christians talk about being blessed. It's wealth, it's health, you know, or it's just some random good thing that happens that's not really a faith or spiritual thing. It's like a reward for your spiritual life, right? It's like, oh, I've been such a good Christian, look how God blessed me with this job that got me this money, or I was sick but I was such a good Christian, he blessed me with health. He blessed me with a good education, and like I feel like that's how we treat blessings, when I don't think that's necessarily what. Yes, those can be blessings from God, but I don't think those are the only way to measure blessings in your life.
Yeah, well, that kind of good segue to my next question.
You're welcome.
So my next question was, if we were to lay those physical markers down and actually like endure and live the suffering of Christ, would we still think that we were blessed? Because a lot of times we use those physical markers as our means to say like, hey, I am blessed because God has gifted me this and this. But if we were to lay all those things aside and not have those tangible items, would we still be blessed? Like, would we still live out a life and say like, hey, I am blessed because I have this strong walk with God that no one else can see physically, like they would a car?
Go ahead, Asha. You answer first while I'm still thinking.
I feel like it would be really hard for me, if I'm being honest, to like recognize that I don't have those things, then I have to like lay it down. But then it also brings me back to like to Paul. He was in jail.
He was in prison.
Yeah, and he's still like so joyful about, you know, serving God. So I would want to take a page out of his book.
Maybe 11 verses at a time.
So, you know, and I agree with you, Asha. I think I think one of Paul's points, because I was trying to find the scripture in Ephesians, right? He kind of talks about being blessed in every spiritual blessing, and and his list of blessings are basically what Christ has done for us so we can have a relationship with God, right? So for him, when he's in prison, yes, he's in prison. He's been, you know, he's strictly thrown in a dungeon. All these bad things are happening. I mean, I think he was shipwrecked twice. He was bit by like a snake. Like, just like all these things happen to Paul. Yet, when you read any of the books in the New Testament that he's written, he's always talking about he's blessed because of the fact he's blessed because he knows Jesus Christ and he has that relationship with Christ. Yeah. Oh, I thought you were gonna like add something there.
No, I concur.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And going back to like what Asha was saying too, it's really hard sometimes when you don't have those physical markers, because especially growing up like in the world that we live in, that's how everyone marks like how good you are, like how good you have it. So like in middle school, if you were wearing Arrow, you're done. Like you don't belong here anymore. So like it's growing up with like a lot of those physical things being what, like how you were accepted into like your society, your people around you. That kind of, I feel like that makes it hard to accept that we don't need things to show that we are blessed. Like we can just live that godly Christ-like life, and people can, like, just through our actions and the way you speak, it's very visible to a lot of people.
Side note, is Arrow still like around?
Yeah.
Are they really? I feel like I've never seen any of their stores. Like
they like really rebranded though. I haven't worn it in a while. Like, but a lot of their stuff looks pretty decent. They got rid of like the Arrow. You know what I mean? It was very aggressive.
It was.
That whole era of like Arrow and Hollister
and it was always like a different fabric, so it was a different texture.
It was like
it was like a 3D thing. Like, it was frayed.
The frayed ends.
So like there was no way to avoid it.
Yeah, and then when you wash it like once or twice, it gets even worse. It was a whole.
Anyway, I feel like I forgot what you were saying.
We don't need things to be blessed.
Yes, that's a good point. I'll let that be the end of that point.
Paul was saying that Paul found that Jesus is worth everything, and he has used his life's work to help others also kind of discover that joy. So like even though he was in jail and he was like going through all of these like really hard times, he still used he didn't even use his struggles as an example of like, hey, this happened to me, but I'm still praising. It was just like, I'm still praising because I'm still here.
And that's interesting because like you started talking about, he lists all these accomplishments that he has.
Yeah. And
all these accomplishments, wow.
Why was that so hard for you?
I don't know. They were all like significant things within the Jewish community and culture, right? Because he was like, I want to say high up in Jewish society before he converts to Christianity. So he's listing all these things, which at the time kind of makes sense. Like if you're going to be close to Christ, they have this debate in the Bible about the influence of Jewish culture on Christianity and things like that. And he's like, well, you know, like I have this and I studied, you know, for this long and I've done all this stuff. It's like, and yet now in Christ, none of that matters.
Yeah.
Right? Which is such a great takeaway because it's the equivalent of being like, you know, hey, I did undergrad, grad school, I have my PhD, I have this great job, I have all of this stuff, I have a great family, I have my health, I have wealth, I have all these things. Yet, none of it really matters unless Christ is there.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's one of the great things about the life of Paul. It's just this constant reminder that, hey, yes, these things are good, but the priority should always be Christ. And telling others about Christ.
I think a lot of times we focus more on the physical things and we forget that aspect. Oh, sorry, I had to crack my knee. Oh my god, it was really uncomfortable. Anyways, a lot of times we focus on those the physical markers. Oh my gosh, there's so many things. I'm sorry.
Yes, you would have to put up with.
How do you have to put up with this?
Because I'm the one that has to go back and sit there and rewatch everything and edit out you cracking your knee and getting tangled up in a wire. What I do is move your foot. Like, it's...
You chose to do this. There's a greater purpose.
Is there, though?
Is there not? What are we here for?
Like, I knew saying that was the wrong thing to say, but, like, I had nothing else. So, yeah.
My goodness. You're the pastor's kid.
Paul was in jail, and he did not complain.
Not at all.
Yeah,
he was shackled.
Paul, if Paul had to sit there and read... Never mind, let's continue.
Wow. I am appalled.
That's funny.
Thank you.
Why? No, don't. Oh. I
am not into corny jokes, but
I want to apologize.
I was gonna play it off, but then she acknowledged it.
Our audience for
I will not apologize for being
joke.
who I am.
I wasn't apologizing. I didn't say I was just apologizing for the joke.
Yeah, but that's it came from the heart. It's who I am on the inside.
You're corny on the inside?
Sometimes.
Okay. Well.
I can own up to it. All right?
Do what you gotta do.
I did. So... I don't even know where I was... Okay, where was I going? I'm sorry. Okay, so also during this time, there were a lot of Judaizers.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That were kind of enforcing like the old school traditional customs of and practices of what it meant to be a Jew, I guess, or like. Okay, so the Judaizers, they had gone through like a lot of old school customs, where they had to like.
You okay? That honestly, that did look like it hurt.
It didn't hurt.
Like I heard it like hit.
It was just the impact.
Was it a hit or a graze?
It was not a graze. It was impact. So the Judaizers were kind of enforcing these old school, like Old Testament traditions, and saying that the Gentiles needed to go through with all of these traditions in order to become a Christian. But Paul was kind of saying, like, hey, like, you don't have to do that anymore. Like, that's kind of the reason Christ came down here. And it was like, as they were kind of enforcing it, there was like, they were living based off of Old Testament guidelines and like that rigid way of life. And my question is, why was that the wrong way to go about converting or making sure that people were like converting, I guess, the right way? Is there a right way? I don't know.
Asha, is there a right way to convert?
A right way to convert?
No.
Well, in their eyes, that was the only way to do it. But what's wrong with that? Why is that no more?
I'll let you go first, Asha.
Can you go first, though? I'm thinking.
All right, so it's wrong because it goes to what is salvation.
Yeah.
Right? Salvation, and I'm pretty sure it's Paul who would pen the words to define in the Bible, but it's the belief in Christ.
Yeah.
Only, right? Like, that's it. So if you're saying now to convert to Christianity, you have to believe in Christ, and you have to be circumcised, and you have to keep a kosher diet. Ooh, that was close. Let's put this like in my pocket or something. And you have to keep a kosher diet, and you have to do all of these other things, right? Then you've it was like weighing down. Like I don't like when the hoodie like it's just it's a whole thing. I'm sorry. But yeah, if you're the moment you say to become a Christian, it's salvation and it's no longer really Christianity, right? Or it's not what is intended, right? Because obviously, if you do believe in Christ, you're saved. But when you start adding in any other type of work, right? It's you're taking away from what Christ is doing because Christ paid the price. Christ did all of the work for salvation.
Yeah.
So if you say, "Oh, and you have to do this, and this," then you're changing the gospel. And that's what I think these Judaizers were doing. Yeah. They were changing the gospel, right? And I don't know what you guys think about this, but I mean, look, in growing up in church, I've seen that happen too, right? Where people will add in these cultural things, right, that aren't really necessarily bad, but they're not necessarily the Bible either, right? And they add in these things, but then they hold you to it as though like you've committed some great sin, right? And you know, so you know, it's a really it's a really harmful thing that the Judaizers were doing. Yeah. And I'll leave it at that.
It definitely puts a strain on Christianity also, like when you have like people constantly, like as you mentioned in church, like people would put like these pressures on, like you have to be a certain way, you have to act a certain way. And like we've talked about a bunch of times how like salvation is a gift. It's like nothing we can take credit for. All you have to do is like believe in God, as you said. So like growing up, it's hard because like I guess that's why people look at Christianity and they're like, I can't come to God in a mess. I have to be perfect in a certain way to like be accepted into the faith, and it's not true.
Yeah, so I kind of, when I was reading into it, I was like, well, just because you've gone through things doesn't necessarily mean I need to go through the same things to have a solid relationship with Christ. Because I feel like Christianity is the kind of thing where it's like, because it is like really it's about your relationship with God and following like a Christ-like example, right? So I can do that and have completely different experiences than you have, or like than Asha had, but that doesn't invalidate my relationship. It doesn't invalidate my experiences at all, because Christianity is more about, it's not about following a book of rules, although they are there for, they're like I don't want to say guidelines, but they kind of are. But they're like, you should listen to the Bible. You should do what it says. You know what I mean? But but it's more than just following like that standard. It's about your relationship with God. It's about finding that substantial joy that Paul is talking about. And I feel like once you have that joy, you realize that it's not just like, oh, I need to not drink. I need to not like do all of these like unholy things, because that doesn't become the priority anymore. Like once you have that solid foundation, it's like, wow, I'm finding joy in God in ways that I never have before. And like I feel like once you get to that point, you don't even think about like the knots, like the things that you shouldn't be doing anymore, because that's just not even in your scope.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things I've noticed is that when we make Christianity about salvation, and a lot of times, like in today's world, Christians get judged harshly on the end, right? We're not being judged on our salvation. We're not being, oh, okay, hey, you were a sinner and now you've decided to give that over to Christ and become this new creation. Mm-hmm. That's not what we get judged on. We get judged on the fact that we're saying all these things that the world interprets as the end part of Christianity, right? And that's what we get judged on, and that's when we get judged on harshly. Yeah. And I think that's what becomes the thing that turns people away from Christ, right? Because I mean, I know for me, there were times when I was younger, when growing up in church, you get hit with all these ands, and you're just like, what's really the point of this, right? And there are times when I had to struggle with that and be like, well, is this Christianity? Is this not? And it was something that took me a very long time to figure out, because I had to. A lot of it came from starting to understand, where did they come up with and this whole list of rules, right? And then you find out, well, it came from a good place, but as you said, my experience with God is different from yours.
Yeah.
Right? So forcing rules that helped you get closer to God may not necessarily help me get closer to God, and
a lot of times it does the opposite.
And that's what happened, right? Like, I mean, that's what happened to me. It that pushed me away from God. Cause like, well, this doesn't make sense. I don't want to serve a God that's like this.
Yeah.
Right. And it took me a while to again just get past some of those hurdles and be like, okay, no, that's not really what God is saying, or that's not what God necessarily wants for me. Right. It's He wants to have a relationship with me. Like that's the first thing. And then everything else kind of flows from having that relationship. All of the good works that should be associated with Christianity are not an addition to salvation, but are the results of my salvation.
Yeah.
I was waiting. I was like, did you like? You look like you took a while to get that one. So I was like, all right.
I did not.
Yeah, you did.
You can't tell me what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, sir. I think that's a good place to end this episode. Right? Don't let others invalidate your experiences.
All right.
I appreciate you.
I'm not going to say anything else.
Because you can't.
Wow. So are you going to invalidate my feelings?
I'm not invalidating your feelings. I'm just saying that if you were to expand upon that, it would invalidate others.
So because of that, then you're going to invalidate my feelings. Now I can't share anything.
Go ahead, share.
No, you already. No, I don't.
I didn't say.
Now I don't want to now.
So you invalidated yourself.
No, you invalidated.
Anyways, I can't make you feel anything. All right. You can allow yourself to feel things. Thank you for joining us tonight for Pursuit. This episode really took a turn. It did. That I was not expecting. Ow. It didn't hurt. It was just a shock.
Anyway,
would you like to wrap up?
So I think the point we were trying to get to before feelings were hurt, and by feeling I mean my feelings, but it's that, one, we shouldn't be adding anything to Christianity. We shouldn't be adding to our salvation, right? But more importantly, the judge of our relationship with God should not be the physical things that we can get, right? The things in the world we can get from God, right? Our relationship with God and should solely be based on that. Our relationship with God. Are we communicating with Him? Is He communicating with us? I think in any relationship, that is the greatest test and standard of a relationship. How well can you communicate? And if you're having trouble communicating with God, I think one of the things that Paul kind of gets to in these verses is rejoice in the Lord, right? Because of the things Christ has done for you, that you can have a relationship with Him. Let that be the foundation of your relationship with Him. The fact that Christ wants you. And then from there, let everything else come from that.
I agree.
So do I.
Go ahead.
What? Okay.
You were going to say something.
No, I just breathed. So I hope you learned something from this study of Philippians Chapter 3, verses 1 to 11, more so than you have about us, because I feel like this episode was very telling about a lot of things, and I hope you took the right things away. You know what I mean? Like the biblical things. Don't let the personality things, cloud the biblical things. You know what I mean? All right.
I don't
Have
know
a
what she
good
means.
week. Make good decisions. All right.
Or just make
Or just-
decisions. Just make decisions. Just do something.
Yeah, do something.
That's a horrible way to end it. No, make good
No,
decisions.
make good decisions.
Make-
Make good decisions. Have a good week.